Most mysteries begin with a question. This one begins with a man who looks ordinary. A neat suit, a quiet voice, a small briefcase, and a one-way ticket out of Portland. He will speak politely. He will never raise his voice. He will order bourbon. And before the night is over, he will step out of a plane and vanish into weather. Not escape, not get away, vanish. This is Armchair Files, and this is the case of D.B. Cooper. The story begins, as many do, with a journey. The date is November 24th, 1971, the day before Thanksgiving. A time of homecoming, a family's gathering. At Portland International Airport, the air is thick with the usual holiday rush. Amidst the anonymous faces in the crowd, one man purchases a one-way ticket to Seattle. He pays in cash. The name he gives is Dan Cooper. He boards Northwest Orient Flight 305. A Boeing 727, a workhorse of the skies, known for its reliability and a very particular design feature, a staircase at the rear of the fuselage. It's a short flight, a routine commuter hop up the Pacific Northwest coast, a 30-minute trip that should have been utterly forgettable. Nothing about him draws attention, at first. Witnesses would later describe a man in his mid-40s, around 6 feet tall, dressed in a dark business suit, a crisp white shirt, and a narrow black tie secured with a mother-of-pearl tie clip. He carried a black attaché case. He was the picture of a traveling executive. Calm, businesslike, unremarkable. He took his seat, 18C, in the rear of the passenger cabin. Shortly after takeoff, he flagged down a flight attendant, Florence Schaffner. He ordered a bourbon and soda, paid for his drink, and even insisted on leaving a tip. He was polite, almost gentle in his manner. Then, as the plane climbed towards its cruising altitude, he passed a note to the flight attendant. At first, she thought it was a phone number, a lonely businessman trying his luck. It was a common enough occurrence. Annoyed, she slipped the folded paper into her pocket, intending to ignore it. The man was persistent but not aggressive, not...
He leaned closer and said quietly, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb."
The words were delivered without malice. No shouting, no theatrics, just a statement of fact. A quiet certainty that was more chilling than any threat. Schaffner, now frozen, did as she was told. The note, written in neat all-capital letters with a felt-tip pen, confirmed his claim. He then gestured to the briefcase on the seat beside him. He opened his briefcase just enough for her to see what was inside. A terrifying collection of wires and red-colored sticks, which he told her were dynamite, connected to a large cylindrical battery. Whether it was a genuine explosive device or an elaborate bluff was impossible to know. In that moment, it didn't matter. The threat was real. And then he made his demands, which he had her write down and take to the captain. They were clear, specific, and non-negotiable. $200,000 in cash and 4 parachutes. The money, he specified, must be in unmarked $20 bills. 4 parachutes. That detail is important. It's a mark of a careful, calculating mind, because it suggests a strategy. If you ask for 1 parachute, you signal you are acting alone. Authorities, knowing this, might be tempted to sabotage it, sending you to your death. But if you ask for 4, you introduce doubt. You create the implication that you may not be alone, or that you may force a crew member, or another passenger, to jump with you. You might take a hostage. No one on the ground wants to risk that. The FBI, now in control of the situation from the ground, had to assume he was willing to use them. The bluff, if it was a bluff, was perfect. While the captain relayed the demands and the world below scrambled to respond, Cooper remained unnervingly composed. He doesn't panic. He doesn't rant. He calmly sips his bourbon, even attempting to pay for a second one, which the flight attendant, under the circumstances, gave him on the house. He waits, like a man ordering room service, not a man holding 36 passengers and a crew of 6 hostage. For 2 hours, the plane circled Puget Sound, burning fuel to ensure a safe landing weight while authorities in Seattle rushed to gather the money and parachutes. Finally, just after 5:30 p.m., the plane lands at Seattle-Tacoma Airport. His demands are met. The cash, all 21 pounds of it, and 2 primary and 2 reserve parachutes are delivered to the aircraft. In exchange, the passengers and 2 of the flight attendants are released unharmed. They walk off the plane into the rainy night, unaware of how close they came to disaster, or that the strangest part of the ordeal was yet to begin. And then, here's where the story stops behaving like a normal crime. A typical hijacker would take the money and flee, but Dan Cooper was not a typical hijacker. He keeps a reduced flight crew on board: the pilot, co-pilot, flight engineer, and 1 flight attendant. He orders the aircraft refueled. He then lays out a precise and very peculiar flight plan. He instructs them to fly again, not to a major city, but toward Mexico City, with a refueling stop planned in Reno, Nevada. He specified the flight path, the speed, no faster than 100 knots, and the altitude, below 10,000 feet. Crucially, he demanded the landing gear remain down and the cabin remain unpressurized. At 7:40 p.m., Flight 305 was airborne once more, flying into a storm. Outside the windows, darkness, rain, and cloud. A turbulent sea of black. Inside, a man in a business suit, now alone in the passenger cabin, calmly tying a bag of money to his body, preparing to jump into the unknown. He had the money. He had the means of escape. Now all he needed was to disappear. Flight 305 was a Boeing 727, and that matters because the 727 has something rare, a rear stairway that could be lowered mid-flight. Cooper chooses a plane with an exit. Somewhere after leaving Seattle, he prepares. He puts on a parachute. At some point, the crew feels a change, a shift in air pressure, a movement they later interpret as the rear stairs being deployed. And then he is gone. No one sees him jump. No one hears a scream. No struggle, just absence. The plane lands later, without him, and the world receives a mystery with a clean ending and no body. Here's the first unsettling reality. This isn't just a who was he mystery. It's also, did he survive? Because the jump was reckless. Night, weather, wind, unknown terrain. And yet, the case refuses to settle into he probably died. Because the evidence does something cruel. It keeps whispering, maybe. The FBI names the investigation NORJAK, Northwest Hijacking. Searches begin. Leads pour in. Suspects multiply. But there's a problem. D.B. Cooper isn't like other criminals. He leaves behind very little. He uses an alias. He vanishes into weather. He doesn't call for credit. He doesn't write a manifesto. He becomes a silhouette made of questions. And year after year, the case grows a second shadow, the public's obsession. People don't only want to know what happened. They want to believe something happened that shouldn't be possible. Because it's comforting, in a strange way. The idea that a calm man can outthink the world and step out of a plane and simply stop being found. That idea is romantic. But romantic stories become ugly when you keep staring. Because vanished doesn't mean escaped. It can also mean the wilderness kept him, and the wilderness is not sentimental. For years, the D.B. Cooper case existed as a ghost story, a collection of memories and theories with no physical anchor. The investigation, codenamed NORJAK, had ballooned into one of the most extensive and expensive in FBI history. Thousands of leads were pursued, hundreds of suspects were interviewed and cleared, but the trail remained stubbornly cold. The lack of tangible evidence was the central frustration. No parachute, no briefcase, no body, and most importantly, none of the $10,020 bills. It was as if Cooper and the ransom had simply been erased from the world, swallowed by the storm and the vast wilderness below. For nearly a decade, nothing physical is recovered that definitively answers the question of his fate. The case file grew thicker with speculation, but thinner on facts. Then comes February 10, 1980, a quiet Sunday afternoon. An 8-year-old boy named Brian Ingram is on a family outing along the north shore of the Columbia River at a place often called Tina Bar. It's a desolate, sandy spit of land, scoured by the river's current and exposed by the low water levels of late winter. The family is there to have a small picnic, to escape the confines of the house. To ward off the chill, he's digging in the damp sand, clearing a space to build a small fire pit for his family. His hands scrape away the top layer of loose, windswept sand, then hit a denser, wetter layer beneath. And his fingers brush against something that isn't a rock or a piece of driftwood. It's paper, but it's thick, layered, and strangely solid. He finds money. Not a few bills dropped by a fisherman, not a lost wallet. He pulls out 3 packets, fused together by time, water, and sand. His father takes them, separating the packets. They are rotted, fragile, and barely holding together. Bundles. Decaying stacks of $20 bills, still held together by crumbling rubber bands. The paper is so decomposed that it has the texture of compost. The edges are rounded and feathered from years of abrasive action from the sand and water. The family carefully counts what they can. The total, about $5,800. They turn it over to the local sheriff, who quickly contacts the FBI. After 9 years of silence, the case has a voice again. The packets are rushed to the FBI crime lab in Washington, D.C. There, technicians painstakingly separate the fragile bills. They check the serial numbers against the master list, a list compiled from microfilm photographs taken of every single ransom bill back in 1971. The confirmation is swift. Investigators confirm the serial numbers match the recorded ransom. It's real. After 3,000 days of searching, a piece of Cooper's money is found, years later, on a riverbank, by a child building a fire. The first and only piece of concrete evidence ever recovered from the wilderness. And this is where the story becomes psychologically cruel. This is the moment the ghost of D.B. Cooper solidifies into something tangible, something that can be studied and analyzed. But the answers it provides are wrapped in a dozen new questions. Because this discovery should help. It's a location. It's a physical object. It should narrow possibilities, confirm a theory, or point investigators in a new, definitive direction. It should have been the key. Instead, it detonates the case into new confusion. The money doesn't solve the puzzle. It shatters it into more pieces. How did the money get there? Tina Bar is miles downstream from the flight path and the projected jump zone. The initial theory was simple. The money washed ashore. But forensic analysis complicated everything. Hydrologists studied the river's currents. Geologists examined the sediment. They concluded the money could not have floated there. The bundles were still held together by rubber bands. If they had tumbled down the river for any significant distance, they would have broken apart. Furthermore, analysis of diatoms, microscopic algae, found on the bills matched species that bloom in the spring, suggesting the money was exposed to the air during that season, not submerged year-round. The evidence pointed to the money being buried, not washed up. But if Cooper died in the jump, how did the money get buried so far downstream? Did the money drift downstream in the bag, get snagged, and then buried by natural processes? If Cooper survived, why bury a small fraction of his loot on a random sandbar and then disappear? If the money was lost during the jump, why was only this small portion found? And why here? Why this location? The ransom money doesn't answer the mystery. It changes it. It deepens it. It adds a layer of confounding, terrestrial complexity to an otherwise aerial crime. It takes a story about a man in the sky, a mythic figure who disappeared into the clouds, and pulls it down into the cold, wet mud of a riverbank. A riverbank is a quiet place to find proof of a crime. There are no witnesses, only the slow, indifferent processes of nature. And that quietness is disturbing, because it suggests time. 9 years of it. 9 years for evidence to decay, for memories to fade, for a trail to be washed away by water and wind. And time suggests someone had the luxury to leave things behind. A survivor who decided this small portion of the money was too damaged, too risky, or simply not worth carrying. A person who made a choice, or that nature did it for them. That the money was deposited there by some fluke of physics and geology, a random act of a chaotic system, burying the only clue to a man's final moments. Either option is not comforting. One points to a cunning survivor who outsmarted everyone. The other points to a universe of pure chance, where the greatest mysteries can be decided by the simple shifting of sand. This is the part where most videos, most documentaries, most retellings of this story do something predictable. It's an understandable impulse, a concession to the demands of storytelling. The audience has been presented with a puzzle and now they expect a solution, so they pick a suspect. They build a compelling narrative around them, often smoothing over inconvenient facts or amplifying coincidences. They try to solve it, to tie a neat bow on a story that has, for half a century, resisted any such tidiness. They offer the comfort of a conclusion. But Armchair Files doesn't chase comfort. It chases consistency. Comfort is easy. It's choosing the story that feels best. Consistency is hard. It means accepting ambiguity, acknowledging contradictions, and refusing to build a house of cards on a foundation of speculation. It means honoring the integrity of the mystery itself. So let's talk about what we actually know. Let's strip away the folklore and the speculation, and anchor ourselves only to the verifiable facts of the case. The few solid pieces of ground in a vast swamp of uncertainty. We know he planned. This was not an impulsive act. He specifically chose a Boeing 727, a model with a unique feature, an aft air stair. This ventral staircase could be lowered mid-flight, creating an exit point that was shielded from the tremendous wind blast that would make a side door jump from a jetliner almost instantly fatal. This single choice demonstrates a significant degree of forethought and technical knowledge. We know he demanded 4 parachutes, 2 primary chutes, and 2 reserves. This detail has been endlessly debated. Was it to suggest he might take a hostage with him, preventing the authorities from giving him sabotaged gear? Was it a bluff, a piece of psychological theater to make his demands seem more credible? Or did it reveal a lack of expertise, a misunderstanding that a reserve chute is already paired with a main? The motive is speculation, but the demand itself is a fact. It points to a mind considering multiple contingencies. We know he jumped into darkness and treacherous weather. The conditions that night were abysmal. Freezing rain, heavy cloud cover, and wind speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour at his jump altitude. He leaped into a pitch-black, storm-tossed wilderness. This means one of 2 things. Either he was utterly desperate, his plan had gone wrong, and this was a final, fatalistic gamble. Or he was supremely confident, an expert who believed he could survive conditions that would kill an amateur. And then we know this, perhaps the most significant fact of all. Despite one of the longest and most exhaustive investigations in FBI history, codenamed NORJAK, no one was ever definitively identified or charged. No body was ever found. No parachute was ever recovered. The vast majority of the ransom money vanished without a trace. The case remains officially unsolved. This is where the mind starts to itch. The vacuum created by this lack of resolution is powerful. Because the human brain hates unresolved shapes. It is a pattern recognition machine, and an incomplete pattern is like a cognitive dissonance. It wants to complete the picture, to connect the dots, to find the missing piece and make the image whole. So when faced with a void of facts, it does something subtle. It begins to substitute narrative for evidence. It begins to prefer whichever theory feels the most narratively clean, the most satisfying, the one that best fits our preconceived notions of what a story should be. We stop weighing evidence and start auditioning endings. He was a trained paratrooper. This theory feels right. It explains his knowledge, his calm demeanor, his survival. It's the competent professional archetype. He was an airline industry insider. This also feels right. It explains his choice of aircraft and his knowledge of flight procedures. It's the inside job archetype, a classic trope. He died instantly on impact. This theory provides a grim but definitive closure. It explains the lack of evidence and the missing money. It's the hubris, punished by fate archetype. He lived and hid, a ghost with a fortune. This is the most romantic theory. It speaks to our desire for rebellion and escape. It's the one who got away archetype, the folk hero. Each of these can be argued. For each, you can assemble a collection of supporting details and circumstantial connections that make it seem plausible, even likely, but can be argued is not the same as is true. A plausible narrative is not a substitute for proof. And this is the danger of a case like this. And that's why this case goes viral over and over again. It's not just a mystery. It's a psychological test. It's a blank canvas onto which we project our own biases, our own desires for order, for justice, or for romantic escape. It's a mirror. It shows you how badly your mind wants an ending. It reveals the subtle ways you are willing to bend the rules of logic to achieve one. And then, after showing you this deep-seated need for closure, it refuses to give you one. It leaves you in the dark with nothing but the facts. And the facts, in this case, lead nowhere. After one of the longest investigations in FBI history, the Bureau eventually redirected resources away from the case in 2016. That doesn't mean the case was solved. It means the case became a kind of permanent bruise. Something you stop touching because you've tested every angle and the pain doesn't explain itself. They remain open to new physical evidence, like money or parachutes, but the official search is no longer active. And that's the final insult, because the public doesn't treat mysteries like investigators do. Investigators want closure. The public wants the door to stay open. Because open doors are where stories live. And this case is the perfect open door. So here's the cruelest part of the D.B. Cooper mystery. It's not that we don't know his name. It's not even that we don't know if he lived. It's this. Somewhere out there, a man either survived the impossible or died without ever being found. And both endings produce the same evidence, the same silence, the same empty space in the sky where he stopped being reachable. So ask yourself, quietly, which ending are you rooting for? Because your answer will tell you more about you than it ever will about him. This is the Armchair Sleuth, and this was Armchair Files.